Happy New Year, everybody. I'm Sean Duhamel from Mass Retirees. Welcome to our first video update for 2020. Today, I want to talk about where things were 10 years ago and how that has set the stage for where we're at today. In future updates, I'll talk about Social Security and windfall elimination provision reform and our legislative package on Beacon Hill. And we are very much anticipating a busy year, both here in Massachusetts and in Washington. There's going to be a lot going on. But before I get into any of that, I just want to give a little bit of advance notice. A week from today is our very first area meeting for the new year at the Lawrence Elks, our Lawrence area meeting. It gets underway at 11 a.m. and that's a standard start time for all of our meetings, with one or two exceptions. All of the meetings start at 11 a.m. Our area meetings are open to all Mass Retirees members. You're welcome to bring a guest, and more importantly, or most importantly, if you know somebody, whether it's a friend, a family member, a former work colleague who's not yet a Mass Retirees member, bring them along. Let them see what we're all about. Hopefully they'll join with us. This is all about strength in numbers. We represent approximately 53,000 retired public employees here in Massachusetts, out of a total universe of over 200,000 public retirees. So we have a ways to go, and one of my goals going forward as CEO is to grow this association and include as many retirees within our walls here, so to speak, as we possibly can. It's strength in numbers, it's advocacy, which is our number one goal. But before I do any of that, or talk about what's coming in the future, I want to talk about where we were 10 years ago in 2010. And not that we're accustomed to looking back in time, because we always got to be forward thinking. We always have to be anticipating what's going to come next. But history is important. And a lot of what went on back in 2010 has set the stage for what took place over the past decade, and certainly what is taking place now in 2020. Now, back in 2010, if you remember, it was the immediate aftermath of the financial collapse of 2008. The Great Recession. We were just climbing out of the Great Recession, and the recovery had begun. But there were huge budget deficits at both the state and the local level. There was a lot of panic. There were a lot of calls for various reforms, whether it be pension reform, COLA reform, retiree health care reform. Most of those things were not positive for our members. Many of those things led to a reduction in benefits and increases in out-of-pocket costs for retirees. And those negative impacts that began in 2010 continue right through to this very day. Now, thankfully, now things are relatively stable, but let me just quickly run through where we were back in 2010. If you remember, the financial collapse caused a loss of pension assets in 2008 ranging from 24 to 33% loss in 1 year. That caused a lot of havoc. And one of the things that came as a result was a call for so-called reform of public pension benefits. Some of that was just modernizing the system, fixing the mortality tables and making sure that the system was on firm footings for the future. And we're all for that. But one of the negative impacts was it also changed benefits. It increase the retirement age for many future retirees by 2 years. If, for instance, if you are a Group 1 employee hired after April 2nd of 2011, your maximum retirement age is 67 rather than 65. It also changed the 3-year average of how your pension benefit is calculated. It used to be a 3-year average, now it's a 5-year average of your highest consecutive 5 years. Again, these changes were made prospectively for new hires after April 2nd of 2011. Now, the reason why they were prospective is legally, once you are a member of the retirement system and contributing your money into the system, the benefits that exist at that point in time, you're locked into those. They cannot be changed or taken away from you, which is very, very important. And that legal protection that our members have and active employees have, that doesn't exist in other parts of the country and certainly does not exist in the private sector. At the same time, we saw a lot of changes with public retiree health insurance and public employee health insurance. And the big change was suddenly we saw massive increases in co-payments, and for the very first time, deductibles being introduced into our plan. And today, at the state level, we have a $500 per person deductible on the non-Medicare plans. That's a lot of money to pay out of pocket before the insurance kicks in. And these changes really weren't taking place until 2010 in the aftermath of the financial crisis. Also back in 2010, the state ran an early retirement incentive. And many of you watching this video, you may have taken advantage of the ERI 10 years ago. It's hard to believe how quickly time has gone by. Many communities, local communities, began joining the State Group Insurance Commission as a way to lower their insurance costs while also providing excellent insurance. And those negotiations, depending on the community at times, could be controversial. One example of the process turning out we consider pretty well is the town of Brookline. And our friend Chet Riley. Chet, I know you're watching, you're very loyal. Thank you for all you have done in Brookline. I know I've said it before, but I'm going to say it again. Your leadership in Brookline, along with your fellow retirees, are the reason why the benefits are so strong in Brookline. But I know it hasn't been easy, and 10 years ago was when Brookline made the choice to join the GIC, and I think overall it's gone well. Nothing's ever perfect. There are always things you can improve upon, but you guys cut the best deal you possibly could, and I think our retirees in Brookline are better off for that. We also saw in 2010 the beginning, like I said before, of this massive wave of pension reform and increasing the pension funding schedule, adding years to the schedule to accommodate for those losses that happened in 2008. One of the positive impacts of extending the schedule and reworking all of the assumptions that go into that is the fact that we were able to also piggyback on those changes, improvements with the cost of living base. At the state level, not in 2010, but shortly after, we were able to increase it to a $13,000 base. But in 2010, the decision was made to allow cities and towns the ability to set their own COLA base level. They were no longer bound by whatever the state was choosing to do. Cities and towns, beginning in 2010, a decade ago, could then begin to set their own COLA base. And local COLA bases today range from $12,000 base all the way up to an $18,000 base. And we believe that as a result of the tremendous pension asset gains that happened in 2019, there are going to be some local retirement systems that are in great financial condition and are now able to even go beyond the $18,000 base. And we'll certainly be reporting on that down the road. But it really set the stage for a decade of reform, a decade of change, a decade of mass retirees, unfortunately, having to play more of a defensive role rather than an offensive role. As an advocacy group, our main objective is to improve the lives of our members, and part of that is improving your benefits, new COLAs, minimum pensions, better survivor benefits, all those sorts of things. But when budgets are tight and we have a target on our backs for folks who want to save money by increasing your costs, that forces us to play more defense just to protect what you already have rather than trying to improve it. And it's our hope that 10 years later, we're in a position now to finally focus more on offense, improving your benefits once again, rather than just clinging to what we already had. So that's where things were 10 years ago. And I know I ran through this quickly, but we're at the 9-minute mark now. So I'm going to sign off for this week. In future weeks, we're going to talk about Social Security. We're going to talk about HR 4540, which, by the way, we have over 80 co-sponsors on right now. We're going to talk about what's happening with the State Group Insurance Commission. We'll know some details of plan design changes in about 2 weeks. So we're going to be reporting all that information to you. So keep tuning in. If you're not already a member and you are a public retiree, join with us. If you're an active employee, you can subscribe to our newsletter. All of this information is on our website at massretirees.com. Thank you for tuning in, and we'll be back to you the end of next week on January 10th. Thanks.